This Budapest Business Journal podcast was recorded at a new series event, the CEO Breakfast Briefing, organised by the German-Hungarian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in partnership with the BBJ. This, the kick-off event, was held at the Anantara Hotel New York Palace on May 24th, 2022. The roundtable conversation you're about to hear focused on the challenges facing businesses today: inflation, war, workforce, sustainability, and more. It features Károly Radnai, CEO of Andersen Consulting, Róbert Keszte, Head of Country for Continental Hungary, and Károly Goszták, CEO of Siemens Energy. Questions were asked by BBJ Editor-in-Chief Robin Marshall. Look out for other BBJ podcasts at budapestbusinessjournal.com. Thank you for listening to this BBJ podcast. Good morning. My name's Robin Marshall. I'm Editor-in-Chief of the Budapest Business Journal. I'll be your moderator for today. Barbara, I'm one of those who's more comfortable in English, so thank you for this series. I've been here for 24 years now, which makes my lack of Hungarian shocking. Very much so. Shocking, and my German is no better, so it's probably beneficial for everyone that we do this in English. What we're going to try and do today is give you, hopefully, an informative, but also equally, hopefully, entertaining overview of the economy, of where we are today, perhaps a little bit about where we're going. We're going to cover the usual grounds, things like the price cut, things like the rising prices, things like energy, things like the perennial battles we all have with finding staff, keeping staff, paying staff. And then, of course, wrapped all around that, we've got rampant inflation, we've got a war in the neighbourhood, and we have, in the background of all of this, sustainability to deal with. So there's a lot going on the plates of CEOs out there. There's a lot for me to report on. There's a lot to keep you up at night working your way through, I'm sure. We have a collection of the great and the good to take us through this morning. So without wasting your time any further, I think it's time I brought them to the stage. We'll start with Károly Radnai, who is from Andersen, and I'm sure is known to all of you here. Károly. We also have, sometimes we do this and we only have consultants. Sometimes when we do this, we like to have industry players as well, because you are involved in the thick of it. And we have two of those today. Next up, we have Dr. Róbert Keszte. Róbert, would you like to come to the table? As I'm sure you know, Róbert is from Continental, and we'll have a lot to talk about. And we have Károly Goszták. Károly, would you like to come, please? Thank you. Károly is from Siemens Energy, and is right in the thick of some of this. And we've all got our microphones. Very good. There's a floor microphone, because later on we will try and open it up to questions from the floor. So if there's anything that's bugging you, if there's any particular brains you want to pick, when we get to that moment, please feel free. As ever, gentlemen, but thank you for joining me on the stage. It would be very one-sided if you hadn't come up when I called you. I'd like to start by setting some context before we get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. There are two reasons for that. The first is that obviously context is important. And secondly, when we live it, as we are at the moment, it's very easy to think that this is just terrible because there is so much that's going on. But one of the things I'd like to perhaps do is explore how bad is it, historically speaking. And then we can talk a little bit about the risk and opportunity equation, whether there are opportunities to grow out of this. So let's start. I'll ask each of you the same question, I think. But Károly, let's start with you. Where are we at today, and how do you think, historically speaking, it compares with recent challenges?
It's a bit difficult to answer how bad it is. I'm a tax advisor, so I can speak about the budget situation. So if we look at the income side of the budget, it looks very good. So it's if we look at the budget forecast, what the government has put aside last year, and what was revised, and we see the figures that based on the first 4 months of the year, the revenue side looks pretty good. So it's partly because of the inflation, partly because of there was a real significant GDP growth in the first quarter. So especially the VAT revenues, but also the excise tax, so what we see is practically that all of the taxes have surpassed the expectations. So it's on the revenue side, everything looks good. So it's a very strong difference compared like the 2008 situation when the budget was very much overestimated, and a lot of austerity measures had to be put in place in order to keep the budget. The problem is on the spending, and this is partly due to the energy prices that was not forecasted last year in that, and also there were a number of one-off spends, which is very much attributable to the election, and we know how our Prime Minister acts. So it happens a lot that he makes up his mind, he makes a decision, and then the administration tries to follow him. So there was a number of decisions which was, in my opinion, was personally his decision, without consulting with the Minister of Finance, whether we have any room for and that caused a lot of problems in recently. So that was that they decided to refund the personal income tax. They decided to stop he decided to stop the gas prices. There were a number of the 13th month of pension. The tax-free income of people under 25. These were decisions made in November, December, January, when the budget was already made. And in addition to that, on top of that, there is a serious decrease in the foreign exchange that causes losses for the National Bank, and also there is a number of government supported loan programs, which actually, because of the GDP growth, they turned out more successful than expected, and these together add up a huge cost that the government has to spend. So we have now a big problem. The problem is quite similar what we have seen like 12 years ago or 14 years ago in 2008. Just the structure of the problem is very much different.
Thank you, Károly. I'm sure we'll come back onto the idiosyncrasies of how decisions are made at the top level later. Robert, I want to go through, as I say, I want to ask each of you the same question. From the perspective of Continental, how are things this year? Was the first quarter good for you? And how do you think this is comparable with previous challenges that we may have faced?
First of all, thank you for Barbara and Tamás for the invitation, for this great initiative. So coming to the question, and maybe I'm trying to answer your previous question, Robin, as well. So how things are in historical context, it's pretty bad. Yeah. So I am representing automotive industries. Continental is one of the biggest automotive companies, and actually the biggest publicly listed company in the automotive supply industry. And we need to look to the global automotive market to understand our situation. So the all-time high car sales happened in 2017, 2018, when we sold globally above 90 million cars, 93, 94 million cars in a year. From these 90-some millions, we dropped in 2020 to 77 million. And last year it was only 82 millions. And for this year, we also forecast 82 million around global car sales. This means that at least 20% of the installed capacity is standing idle, and somebody is financing that. And this is a huge burden on the entire industry, and this is really consuming our energy to find the solutions for financing it. Of course, we are doing a lot of restructuring in the industry. We are having austerity measures endlessly, so that's difficult. And the reasons, and that's a big issue, that we don't face only one cause for this situation. We started with COVID. After COVID, we have the supply issues with commodities and raw materials. Then we have the energy price increase already before the Ukrainian situation. And I could list some other further issues we are facing. So it's a very complex situation in our industry, and this is leading to my forecast that it will stay difficult and it will last longer until our industry is recovering. So probably until the end of this decade, we can climb back to the 94, 95 million sold cars. So this is our forecast, that it will take 10 years from the beginning of the actual situation until we are back to the previous levels of car manufacturing, and then we can grow further, because obviously there is still a great demand for cars. So there's a huge demand, but the issue is that on the supply side, we are really constrained by many issues, and these constraints, they are not easy to overcome. And your question about first quarter. So first quarter was not good at all for my company, and also I guess for most of our competitors in the automotive supply industry, for the same reasons. So we are still having supply constraints. We still have price increases in all of our input factors, like materials, like logistics, like people. So that's really a very difficult financial situation. But of course, it's not everywhere the same. If I look to our customers, big OEMs, big car manufacturers, they are having great time. And the reason for this big gap between the supply industry and the OEMs is that OEMs are working with price lists, and they can change their prices to the end consumers. And all of you are facing this, that if you buy a car, you pay like 30% more than a year before. While in the relation of OEMs and suppliers, we have long-term contracts with fixed prices. And of course, we cannot charge the cost increases to our customers. We are fighting for it, and there are a lot of discussions ongoing. So the entire industry is busy with that. But it's a long process, and the power balance between customer and supplier is more towards the customers. So that's shortly the situation.
And I suppose, one of the important things you said is that there's still this huge demand for cars, and that's very clear. By the way, the second-hand market is going, because people can't access new cars, so suddenly we see this demand for the second-hand market too. Arpad, in a sense, you really are at the center of the storm. You're an energy. You have an energy hat. Before we drill down into that, what's your view on how we've got here? How's the year been? How do you think it might go?
I think just to start with the first question that how is the situation? I would say good. If you see just the numbers everywhere and the demand on the markets, then it can be quite good if you are talking about today and in the past some several months. But on the other hand, if we are talking about the future, then the threats and the risks are very high and increasing, and this is something where I would say that the society and the industry must learn again some word, and we can see that the memory of the industry is not so good, I would say. And let me tell just to three topics. The first is war. War was, in our perspective, always something in the history books, and now it's a clear threat that we will be part of the war, and all the European countries will be part of the war. The second is the shortage. In the last decades, we cannot really knew that word that we have shortage on any kind of commodities, on any kind of products, and now we are waiting 2 years for a Skoda Octavia if we want to order, or you don't have the access to a lot of things which was absolute natural from that perspective that it's available. And first of all, the raw material shortage that we have seen. And the third is the inflation, which is also something which is, in the last decade, we don't had really inflations, and industry has forgot that word. So if you are talking about in the pricing, that the pricing escalation, pricing models to have long-term contracts, is something which was forgot in the last years, and everybody was very optimistic that the prices will stay flat. Just for an example, one wind turbine what we are building in the North Sea, it requires 4,000 tons of steel, and the steel prices has tripled in the last year. Of course, there are then losses if you have fixed prices to the end customers, and this is not a sustainable industry and market anymore. And this is what we are, for example, suffering as if you see the Siemens Gamesa and the losses what we are making, and a lot of companies doing the same. So we have to change the mindset and coming back to topics which were normal some years ago, or some decades ago, and we forgot it simple, and were very optimistic and did not handle this risk correctly.
Thank you, Arpad. As I have you, and you mentioned wind turbines, we've talked about sustainability kind of being something in the background, but I guess for you it's more to the foreground. So how do you see the sustainability issues going forward? Is there some way there that you can see a way of stabilizing and improving the business, perhaps?
So the problems with the electricity and the energy industry is not new and not begun with the war in Ukraine. So it's I would say in the last 10-15 years, I would say the start was the beginning with Fukushima and with the nuclear exit. In that case, if you are talking about the energy system, so a sustainable energy system has also 3 pillars. One is affordability, which is now not really the case. Let's see that. The second is the reliability. So this is able to provide the demand for 24/7. And the third is environmental friendly, and there are some different environmental targets. Let's say that in the last years, the most important was the carbon-free supply. And if we look back in the last 10 years or last decade, then we can see that no, I can't really say countries who were focusing on both free or all three topics. So in Hungary, it was clear that the affordability was the first priority and the priority. This means that in Hungary there was no additions to the grid, no additions in the generation capacity. It was we were profiting very good from the cheap import of the electricity from northern countries like coal in Poland. For example, or renewables in Germany, the surplus in renewables in Germany. If we are looking back to the Western countries, then they were very focusing on the environmental topics, but not on the reliability topic. And this means that the risk of outages, of blackouts, of risk of 24/7 hour supply of the electricity is higher. Significant higher because they invested a lot in the renewables, but are not able to transmit the electricity to the right consuming place, and they are not able to storage it, and they are not able to to produce oil during the day. On the other hand, we can see that a lot of countries have decided to exit from coal and exit from nuclear. By the way, you know that what is the biggest electricity source of Germany today? Coal. So just to know it, so about 40% of the electricity in Germany is made by coal power plant, coal-fired power plant. So that's the topic that focusing on both three pillars. I cannot really say countries in Europe who was thinking in that way and in that complex way, and I think it's changed. If you see that UK, that Belgium, France, and Netherlands, and even Poland and Romania has a clear vote on nuclear now, and it's changed because some of that countries had wanted to outphase in more steps, not so fast as Germany done, but they changed in the last years. Their mindset, and they will go for nuclear, and they will go for natural gas, which is also very important to be able to balance the renewables and the nuclear base load.
Which also brings us to the idea of the oil and gas embargo, but perhaps we'll come to that. We've since I've dipped our toe into the sustainability waters, Robert, what's the sustainability outlook for your company, and are there hopes in that you can overcome some of the challenges today by concentrating ever more on that line? You sort of have to go that way anyway. We all talk about ESG now, but do you see sustainability as a growth potential for you?
I need to think a little bit. We have a growth potential in sustainability on the industry level. Yeah. So for mobility industry, sustainability is a big driver. So we are in the middle of a transformation where we are transforming our industry from the internal combustion engine to electromobility. So that's one of the largest transformation. But we have parallelly a transformation from human-driven cars to autonomously driven cars. And we have also a transformation from offline cars to online cars. So actually there are three transformation happening in the same time in the industry while we have this supply crisis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's a quite complex situation. And if you ask me, sustainability is an opportunity. Yes, it's definitely an opportunity with the electromobility. So there we have a big opportunity, and companies who are actually not involved in electromobility or in any alternative powertrain solutions, they will have definitely big issues in the next 10 years. You know that we have Fit for 55 in Europe, and starting 2035, there will be no internal combustion engines released on the market. So that's really happening. There are really legislations on the way which are enforcing this, and we need to take this as on the one side as an opportunity, on the other side it's a must to go in this direction. So this is one pillar of the situation with sustainability. And the other part is that we need to transform our operations to a sustainable working model. Yeah? So we are actually in my company, we are already since 2020 buying all of our electricity from green sources. So we are really supplying our factories and our offices with green energy. And now we are on the way to achieve carbon neutrality and emission-free operations. We are working on the circular economy, so we are trying to recycle everything we can do. And all these activities shall contribute to our competitiveness at the end of the day. So in this sense, yes, this is an opportunity, but I also need to admit it's a very difficult way to go, because there are no best practices, there are no pathways where we can go along, where we are sure on the outcome. We need to explore everything by being in the front line of the industry. So it's really a difficult path to go.
Károly, I know that tax is your speciality, but wearing your consultant's hat, where are we with the threat versus opportunity equation here? Is in a sense, there are very clearly a lot of threats out there, and businesses have to respond to those. But what's the risk level? Are we? Do you get a sense that businesses are, at least some businesses are very worried about what their future is, or are there enough people who are optimistic about, okay, well, we are here, we are ingenious, that is what we're paid to do, we can find our way out of it?
I think that during the pandemic, we have seen that not only Hungary, but the entire globe was able to respond very quickly, and the digitalization was accelerated in a very much what nobody expected. So companies could switch to remote working from one day to another. Plans that have been taken for months or for years, how to digitalize certain things, had to be shortened and implemented in 1 month's time. So I think that any kind of recession or change in the environment is ultimately good for the businesses at the end of the day, because those who are competitive enough will sustain, and those who are not competitive enough had to change, or they will leave the market, and those will remain on the market who are competitive. So from that point of view, I think nobody likes to experience a recession or a very dramatic change in the environment. But at the end of the day, the end result in long term will be good. And I expect this also in Hungary. So Hungary is in a lot of sense very conservative, very old model, old-fashioned, and such crisis can force Hungary to change and in a lot of things. So I mean, I think you know better that what is the problem with the education, what is the problem with the health system, what is the problem with structurally with the industry, that Hungary was very much focusing on the rather manufacturing side, which is the low added value thing, and such crisis can enforce the government to make certain changes to improve Hungary's competitiveness. And in a lot of sense, Hungary is very much competitive. For example, taxation. The taxation has been digitalized very much in the last 10 years. I can tell you that Hungary is much ahead of many other European Union countries. If you look at the statistics about tax evasion, Hungary has improved the statistics very much. So I mean, there's a lot of things that Hungary made already a huge progress in the last 10 years, and there's other things which had to change. But I never afraid of any crisis, because I know that crisis is rather an opportunity.
It's quite Darwinian, survival of the fittest, I suppose. As I've got you speaking, let's sort of not cast it so far forward and look in the more immediate future. Should we look forward to any more tax cuts, he said, hopefully, or has the government really played that hand out just ahead of the election? And if we're not going to be looking at tax cuts, should we be looking at new taxes? There was this talk immediately after the election about maybe going after the supermarkets again. And I don't think there are many people in this room who would be fans of sectoral taxes. So should we fear that there may be more coming down the line?
I think we should. I mean, I would be very much surprised if there would be any tax cuts. There may be some symbolic things, but the budget cannot afford any further tax cuts. So I mean, for example, the social taxes, so what the employers are supposed to pay, there was a 3-year plan how to decrease, and that was just all of a sudden decided that everything will be enacted as of January 1st, and that was immediately a 4% cut in the social taxes. So there had been already a lot of tax cuts. I would be very much surprised if there would be any other than symbolic. Rather the opposite, that there is a rough estimation that there is a budget gap of 3,000 billion that has to be solved. So I mean, either decreasing the spend or increasing the tax, but that's the gap. And
sorry, can I just 300 million or 300 billion?
3,000 billion.
3,000 billion.
3,000 billion.
It's not small change.
So the missing gap is 6% of the GDP, roughly, and so the government has to do something. So either to increase the utility prices, which most likely is a no-go for them, to increase the taxes in general. I don't think it is a decision to be made. So sectoral taxes, yes, there would be additional sectoral taxes, but that's it in itself is not sufficient to fill the gap. So currently, or not currently, last year, Hungary had like 800 million together from all sectoral taxes, including the bank tax, the retail tax, so it's 800 billion. The missing gap is 3,000 billion. So even if they double the sectoral tax, it's not enough, or triple it, it's not enough. So there has to be additional measures. So they have already started to halt certain large-scale investments, which is okay for a year, but sooner or later they have to implement those investments. So they have to figure out sustainable, either lowering of the spend or increasing the revenue. I think they will have to eventually both.
I think that the tax reduction is not realistic from 2 points. One is that you may remember that 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, nobody believed for the Hungarian government the new taxing policy, which has 2 pillars. One was that with the reduction of the salary-related taxes or income taxes, there is a huge potential for further employment, and nobody was believed that at least in Brussels or at IMF that there will be 1 million more employers here in Hungary in the next 10 years. They did it. The second, nobody believed that in the digitalization of the tax system with this electrical connection of our gases, what is the potential of that? How many hundreds of billion forints is there from the grey industry to go to the green legal industry? And it was part of the convergence problem. and Russell said, no, it's not realistic that you will have so many more tax income just from the digitalization of the tax system. So these reserves are not there anymore, so I don't think that there is an additional 1 million employer on the market, or with the further digitalization of the system, that there can be more legal taxation system in the smaller industries. But on the other hand, what I see that there are a lot of industry sectors who are now realizing extra profit. And just because of the shortages, let me say one example which hitting us absolutely, concrete steel. 50% of the concrete steel demand of the Hungarian industry, building industry, was covered by Ukraine, Azovstal, and from Russia. You are not able to buy from Azovstal anymore, and from Russia, due to the sanctions, you cannot buy. So 50% less is now the available topic. And who are able to deliver can do double-digit profits, so very high profit. And I think that it makes sense to think about to have some extra taxes on that sectors who are profiting from that situation, and not because they are better, just because the other sources are not available due to the geographical international situation. And I think that the Hungarian government will do this.
This is a very risky game. I know what's going to happen, but in this shortage situation, they are free to sell the products to somewhere else. If they are coming to Hungary and they see, okay, we have sectorial taxes on our products, they sell it somewhere else, and then we have an even deeper crisis. So,
I think there's also a philosophical approach to this. You know, some parties some political parties are more willing to go down this road than others. There is a very similar conversation going on in the UK right now about what they call windfall taxes, although in that case it's very much on the energy sector, and particularly the oil and gas markets. So MOL would not be enjoying the conversation, for example, in the UK. Károly, do you hear any rumours of windfall taxes? Are there sectors that ought to be prepared to be hit?
I wish I did. I actually know nothing more than anybody else reading the news. I expect that the government is going to deliver a tax bill end of this week, early next week, and we'll be much smarter. We tried to figure out what is in it, but nobody was daring to give even hints. I think it's partly because there's still a big hesitation what to do. The Minister Varga has already made a note that they are thinking about reshaping the quota taxation. The National Bank made some statements which we may think that they were suggesting increasing the VAT, because although Hungary has the highest rate of VAT, the VAT gap, so the tax evasion in VAT is one of the smallest in the European Union because of the digitalization. So it may be also a logical move to increase 1% of VAT increase is like 250 million half.
Just to clarify, so we would go from 27 to 28, or sectors like housing, which are currently down at 5%, would be
both. Yeah, so they're thinking about cutting back the preferential rates. So there's a bunch of goods and services which are enjoying preferential rate. So that can be also a decision that those would be back to the 27%. So it's a game. But what I think is they're not going to change is the personal income tax, the corporate income tax. These are the headlines of the Hungarian taxation. But the rest is free to change.
We have a lot of ground. We've covered a lot of ground. There is a lot of ground we could still cover, but I'm conscious of the fact that we said we would try and open up to the floor, and we're beginning to run out of time. So are there any questions for our panel from the floor? We do have a mic which can be mobilized. So does anyone have any questions? No? Sir.
Thank you. I'm Klaus Streicher. I'm from the German embassy, and I'd be interested in hear your assessment about the nationalization strategy of the government. There's lots of talks and rumors that further sectors might be nationalized in terms of bringing in more Hungarian owners. And I would be interested to know if that might become a reality, and if yes, what sectors you would see as being targeted. Thank you.
While business thinks, Károly, have you heard anything?
No, but I can imagine. So I don't feel competent answering this question. So it's.
Maybe I can say a few words on it. I hope automotive is not among. But I mean that there are also industrial sectors which are affected. Looking around, if somebody is here from the company, but we are really working with lot of Hungarian suppliers in our locations, and there are topics which you cannot avoid. Companies which are kind of nationalized lately. So for example, digitalization, as Károly said, it's one of our competitive areas where we want to work, and there was a tendency in the last years to acquire small companies which are working in digitalization by one big fish, and this big fish you cannot go around today. Mm-hmm. So we did not work with them, but our suppliers were all purchased by one company, and now we are also working with these companies, and this is not good. So I can clearly say this is not supporting competitiveness, because if you have only one big player on the market, then you will somehow avoid competition, and you will have then a situation which you don't like to have. So I just hope that in automotive and in the related industry branches, we will not see that.
Alpert?
At Siemens times we made an analysis that we called it good corporate citizen, and the good corporate citizen that in which countries we have which footprint, and which footprints means that what is our trade balance in the country. And we said that if it is in a balance, so we are selling selling a lot, but also buying from that country a lot from the purchasing volume, then if it balanced, then we are a good corporate citizen in that country. And in Siemens Energy, this is the case, that even we are more exporting and not importing and just selling. But I would say from your answer that for companies who are unbalanced in that case and selling significant more than importing and not has this international balance are threatened. And it's independent from the industry. As I see and as I talk to the government, it's a clear intention that the domestic market demand have to be fulfilled mainly by companies who are able to operate here in Hungary and sell here in Hungary.
They've made no secret about that. What I think is new, János Lázár in his parliamentary hearing was saying that there are certain sectors where he wants to see Hungarian ownership raised up, and I think that that's always a concern. It's a slightly different topic, but what's happened? Do you hear anything about the sale, / purchase, voluntary or otherwise, of the airport? Because that seems to have gone very quiet. There was an offer, I think, that was made.
Yes, there was an offer, but I think that plan was just dropped because that requires also a lot of money. The government cannot afford that. So I mean, the plan was that they will buy it like 1,500 billion half or something. I think that was the latest or even higher. I don't remember the figure, but it was just. I mean, it wasn't Daniel Jelinek or Moll who put aside that they were just the front and the face of the transaction, but the government wanted to back finance it, and I think they don't have the financial means to do that now. So I think that plan was. I don't think that they dropped the plan for good, but for the next 2-3 years, I don't think it's realistic.
I remember the governor of the Bank of England came out very publicly and said it was not good value for money, and if you wanted to do something with an airport, you should go and build a new one.
Just my opinion that the airport, I understand it is a strategic base, but they can. So I mean, if foreigners own it, what can they do with that? So they cannot take it away. So it stays in Hungary. So I think it was rather an emotional move than a logical.
What interests me in particular about the airport is it's not the first time they've done that. We've been down this route. They nationalised it overnight at Christmas, or at least they announced it at Christmas, and then they sold it again. So it seems, or different governments, but it's a route we've gone down before.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Norbert Krasszály from the BAI Research Center. Do you think that the raw materials shortage in your industry, so automobile industry or building materials in energy sector, can be solved by recycled materials, and to what percentage?
Yes, the question goes to me. It was good that I had some time to think about the answer. My answer is no, cannot be solved.
Can it be partly solved?
Partly definitely, or needs to be. But the reason is that the majority of our issues are related to semiconductors. So there are many shortages like steel and copper and lithium and whatever, but still in the core of the issue we have the semiconductors. And in the semiconductor manufacturing, recycling has practically no role. And there is also no, at least to my knowledge, there is no technology which would enable us to recycle semiconductors on its own. So this problem will not be solved. There are other issues, for example, related to batteries for the electric vehicles, where we see a much bigger role for recycled materials. But let's say today it's the minor problem. The big problem is with the semiconductors, and the semiconductor shortage will be, again, up to my opinion, not solved in the next years, for the simple reason that on the demand side we have a very strong increase, and this increase is driven by the availability of cheap money. And even though we have no inflation and we have no starting crisis, but the money is still there, and people are still going to buy digital devices and electrified cars, which are all requesting semiconductors. And on the supply side, to build a semiconductor factory costs 10 billion euros at least, takes 5 years, and then you have only one factory. Then you have a modern factory, but you need plenty of these factories to come up to the demand. So I'm not optimistic on the semiconductor crisis to be solved soon. Other shortages can be solved by recycling, but this will not improve the overall situation of the automotive industry.
So what we really need is some researchers to look at how we can do that quicker. Thank you for the question. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Judith Simonyi, and I am representing the personal consultancy business. And you have mentioned different topics which can have difficulties in the business, but you haven't discussed the manpower or the job market difficulties.
Because we just have 1 hour.
This morning, I heard in the broadcast that the government is going to introduce a new regulation for manpower leasing from the Asian countries. What is your opinion about it? Can it be solved the problem for the blue-collar workers? Because I guess that for the engineers and top-level manpower is not really the solution.
Okay, I guess I have the most pain on this, so I need to start with the answer. Of course, there is no one size fits all solution for the blue collar shortage. Definitely, the long-term solution is the digitalization and automation. I think all of our companies are working heavily on the automation, and we are progressing. So we see that without this effort, we would be in even more difficult situation. Unfortunately, not all the products and not all the technologies can be automated. So we will still have manual processes, especially in the creative industry, especially in the small lot size manufacturing. There will be always manual work, and we need to have a solution for that. And obviously, we will not have other 1 million people coming to the labor market from Hungary, because even if we would have a boom of newborn babies, it would take 18 years to get them on the labor market. So we need to have a solution, and this solution is to let foreign workers to come to the country, and then we need to look around which sources we have. We used all the neighbor countries in the last 6-7 years to supply our labor market, and we see, at least in the countries which I know, we see that there is no availability of blue-collar workers, neither in Romania, nor in Serbia, nor in any other countries in the near proximity. Our biggest source of blue-collar workers was Ukraine in the last years. Unfortunately, Ukraine people are now in a very difficult situation. They have other issues than to come to work in Hungary, and then it's an obvious solution to look further. In my company, we are working with colleagues from Philippines.
Robert?
Yes, it's a temporary solution, I would say, and mainly unskilled workers are needed in the construction industry in a very, very huge amount. So I think more 10,000 people are missing now from the market. I think longer term, and this is my personal hope, that if the quality of living will increase in Eastern Europe, then the problem will be more than a Western European problem, because the people who are working now in Western Europe will return, and this can solve a lot of skilled people problems. But generally, this is the way what they should do. There are no other resources. It's not because it's very exotic to go to Thailand or to Indonesia for making such agreements, because these are the realistic sources of workforce now as of today, and this is the right thing to do.
Károly?
I'm an employee of a relatively small company, so I think it's. I tend to agree that it's a short-term solution. We have structural problems in the industry, and this is just a short-term solution to fix that. Okay, we have a labor shortage, and so let's import people from abroad. I think there's automation is gonna be the ultimate solution for that, and I am very happy that you are not able to automate everything. but I think that's gonna be rather the solution than because if we will have a situation that we'll need millions of people abroad, Hungary is not going to be the most attractive place in Europe. So if we're gonna be only just a transit country, or the other decision that we are not importing people from India and from Philippines, but if there are labor available there, then companies will go there rather than. So I don't think this can be a feasible solution on a long term.
Might I disagree shortly? If you look to our Western countries, we see if you go in Germany to a factory, you don't see German people working on the lines. And it happens for many decades already. So that's really, for me, a feasible solution that on long term we are working with foreign workers, and the competitiveness of the country can be still influenced by our white-collar workers and the engineering knowledge or the expert knowledge or the research knowledge of the country. So there's still an option for that.
It's perhaps a bit broad for this, but maybe it's time to very quickly look at that. Are we happy? So there are certain. We're talking about short-term solutions here. We have an employable workforce here, although basically we're full-time employment. Are we happy that the system is turning out people who are fit for work? So are you happy with the quality of the Hungarian workers you get? Or is that a whole other issue? And Albert's quite right. We have a finite amount of time, so perhaps a quick upsum of where you stand on whether the current education system is fit for purpose. I'll go with you again.
So we are the strategic partner of the Hungarian government and has also a project for some educations and common education center that we are running. So in that case, very short, yes. Compared to the countries what I know, I think that the productivity level and also the working environment, legal framework is very, very competitive here in Hungary, and the availability of the people. You always say that Tesco should have the problem to fill their employment because we don't have. We have challenges at Siemens Energy. We are employing more than 1,300 people and intend to hire an additional 400, half of them white collar and half of them blue collar workers. So I think that we have the challenge and we have the amount of demand also, but I guess that there is available skilled worker on the market, but you have to educate them, you have to train them, and if you see that how the government is supporting that with the aids, in one time financial aids, and on the second also to transform the system to more friendly, then I can say that it's compared to the other countries, it's quite very good. Of course, far away from Germany, so in that case, I think that the German system is even the best. No, they are just suffering on the lack of the Azubis or lack of the trainees, because nobody wants to go now for in Germany at least to be a welder in a company. But the system is perfect.
So you're happy with the Hungarian education system?
I am happy as Siemens Energy with the Hungarian education system. I can imagine that other industries and other people are not happy with that.
Okay, I see where you're going with that. I thought you meant you personally were not happy.
Yes.
Robert.
So we are employing around 8,000 people in 6 cities in Hungary. So, and we have very diverse need of workforce. And there are topics where we are happy, and there are other topics where we are totally unhappy, I need to say. So it's not always the same. Let me just bring some examples. So here in Budapest, we are running an R&D center for artificial intelligence, which is one of really the high-end R&D entities in Continental. And here we are happy with the knowledge and quality of the people we get. We are not happy with the amount. We could take immediately twice as many as we have today. But by the knowledge and by the expertise they have, we are very happy with them. Right, so that's a good one.
Are any of those direct graduates, or are these people who already have experience?
Well, we have both. So we have a program at the university for internship. Then we are having cooperative PhD with the university, and then that's one source of our employees. And the other source, of course, we are taking a lot of colleagues from our competitors. Yeah? I mean, we need to be honest about it. That there is a very heavy fight on the market for these guys. And since we have a strong ecosystem here especially in Budapest, but I think also meanwhile in all the country, this strong ecosystem helps us to get these guys. So that is also, it's not the formal education we talked about, but it's also a consequence of having a good university education in certain fields. If you ask me if I am happy as employer with the general situation of the education, I need to say no. I am not like Arpi. I'm unhappy with the education, especially looking to the STEM topics like mathematics, physics, chemistry education. Definitely, we are lacking teachers. We are lacking motivated teachers. And we see that the pipeline for our future jobs is not filled. So we talk today about bringing in blue-collar workers from abroad, but if I look 10 years ahead on the road, I need to say we don't see where these future engineers and these future experts would come from, because the pipeline from bottom up, it's getting really empty because of the lack of teachers, because of the lack of upcoming new generations of scientists.
Mm-hmm. Károly.
And do you hear me? Yeah, okay. So what I have experienced is that there is getting a big difference between the highest level of education, so how the universities are structured and the colleges are structured, that what's happening below that. And what I see is a good trend that the universities are much more practice oriented. They really look for that where the graduates can eventually be hired and continue their work, whereas there is a big gap between the highest level education and the mid-level, so the high schools and stuff like that. So I absolutely agree with you that eventually we're sitting in a big problem. What I see as an employer from that is that the quality of people, we usually hire people from economic universities and law universities, and the quality of people are not worse than like it was 5 or 10 years ago. What we have seen is that there's not that many people graduating on these universities. So there's a trend for IT. So like we have experienced like 10 years ago or 5 years ago that students realized that their future is with IT, and now we are experiencing that we have much less applicants for jobs than before. Mm-hmm. It's not the quality, but we don't. I mean, just my situation that last year, this time of the year, I already knew that who are going to be my 10 new employees as of 1st September. Now I know only 2 because we don't have enough applicants. And I think what we are experiencing is a big shift in education, in the highest level education towards IT, because this is now the most prosperous future for the younger generation. And another aspect, and I don't think I will surprise you, is the motivation. that what we also struggle with, that in tax advisory, it's a very difficult profession. You have to practice and learn, and you can be a good tax advisor if you keep doing this for 3, 4, 5 years. We have seen a lot of young people are just changing their mind after 2 years, which is quite bad for them because they just wasted their time for 2 years, and quite bad for us because we have invested a lot. And that's also a problem. It's a motivation thing that they're not thinking about long term. Then probably my generation was more like that.
Yeah. I just want to draw the attention of the responsibility of the industry in the education, because it's quite easy to claim always the education system, but I think that in every countries where we can say that there is a good education system, there is a good cooperation between the industry, between the economy and the education system, and the level of that in Hungary is quite low compared to other countries. I also have discussions with this project that I'm always saying that in my point of view in Hungary you have to go for a malus system, because there is no malus system, just incentive system for cooperation with the universities. For example, in France you have to employ at least 5% of apprentices, or you have to pay extra taxes. So in that case, that how you motivate the economical players to take part in the education system is quite different by the countries, but the level of the cooperation is very low in Hungary, and this has to be increased. And this is not only a government responsibility, it's also the responsibilities what I call good corporate citizens, or pay extra taxes.
Motivation is a wonderful thing. I remember when I came here in '98, the system was just littered with lawyers. Everyone was either a lawyer, it seemed to me, or was training to be a lawyer. And I have to say, I think one of the good things the government did do was say, okay, we probably don't need this many lawyers. Speaking as a journalist, I think that's a very good idea. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and your input. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. We could undoubtedly go on a lot longer. We've barely touched the surface, but we are running out of time. I think I will say, is there any one last question? Is it a short question?
Yeah. But I don't know about the answer. So thank you so much. I'm Benjamin Strecker from Mobility Air. I think we see a systematic failure. And I don't see any answer today to the systematic failure. What's the systematic failure? Over the last decades, we had cheap money and we invested a lot because we had all the cheap money from all the world. We were secured globally in delivery and all the things what we have done. And we cut at cost. This was our goal. Shareholder value, a better price on shares. This was the only thinking the last 10 years. And we ran on success. Now time has changed. Many people running around and saying, okay, the pandemic is over and it comes back. No, it doesn't come back. We have another time. It's a new time. And my question is, because we have to invest more, my question is Hungary a chance, because the economy is young, to understand that we have a new time and that they change into investment and what Hungary needs and what Hungary offers?
Very simple question.
There you go. It sounds more economic than anything. Go on, Károly, you try that.
So I can go back to what I've said, that I think there are systematic problems in Hungary where I expect that the crisis can help, because that will show to the decision makers that things just simply fail. And I tend to agree with you that this time is going to be different from what we have experienced before the pandemic, and this is something also the Hungarian government needs to realize, because the government was put all energy to reinstate the situation that was before. But I think it's not going to be Hungary solving this issue on its own. It's rather going to be a regional thing. So it's Hungary can do whatever they want. It's a small economy. We'll see that how the region will react in overall, together with Poland, especially Poland, because that's the largest. Yes, you're right that Hungary is a young economy and it's not that complex economy. So implementing structural changes in the Hungarian economy is definitely simpler, like in Italy or in Spain or in Germany or in France. So that can be a competitive advantage. But if you are looking at the competitiveness of the region, Hungary is not in the top tier. So it's rather the Baltics, Poland, and Romania that are positioned much better in terms of reaction and change.
And I suppose it's also fair to say that business can say, look, this appears to be a systemic failure, we need to fix it. But ultimately, that's down to the politicians. Sadly, we're not allowed to run the country.
Ultimately, the voters and then the politicians.
Okay.
This is my biggest concern, I would say, what you have questioned, a very good question, that I cannot see anything in the industry or in the country which we can say that made in Hungary and world famous. To be honest, Hungary is still a cost-saving country. So from company perspective, we are investing here because we can save cost in the operations, and there are a lot of things to do. And I hope that there will be something, and there must be some brainstormings on every level of decision makers and stakeholders. That what is really which can be really Hungary the competitive and very at least regional champion. I don't see any industry or any activity here in Hungary where we can say that we have very good. We have a lot of very good positions in industries, sometimes also leading positions. But if future oriented or something like that, this is what we have to work on.
Robert?
Yeah, just a closing word to this. I think we can put the same question to Europe. And yes, we should answer the question as Europeans, because Europe is losing a lot of competitiveness practically every day in the last decades. And if Europe gets again competitive, then Hungary will find its place in this competitive landscape. But Hungary cannot be competitive without Europe, and Europe cannot be competitive without a competitive Eastern Europe. Yeah? So I think that's a regional question.
Well, maybe that's the hope then. Good Lord. Hope and the European Union are not always words that go together happily. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I think we really have to leave it there. You've been very patient. Gentlemen, you've been very generous with your input. So let's hear it one more time for Károly Radnai from Andersen, Róbert Keszte from Continental, and Róbert Keszte from Siemens Energy. I've been Robin Marshall from the Budapest Business Journal. Thank you very much. That's very generous, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And of course, thank you to Barbara and the German Chamber for putting this on for us. Thank you.